The quantum resonance detector aboard the ESS Horizon hummed quietly as Dr. Elena Santos adjusted its settings for the 1000th time. The research vessel drifted at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, where conventional wisdom said nothing interesting should exist. But conventional wisdom hadn't accounted for the anomalous energy signatures that had brought them to this remote corner of the solar system. "You're going to wear out the calibration matrix," said Commander James Chen, floating into the sensor lab with practiced ease. His weathered face bore the subtle marks of someone who'd spent too many years in low gravity. Elena didn't look up from her work. "The readings don't make sense, James. It's like watching a symphony through a telescope. These patterns shouldn't exist naturally." The commander peered over her shoulder at the holographic display, where waves of quantum data danced in mesmerizing sequences. "And you're sure it's not equipment malfunction? 3 different sensor arrays, 2 separate processing methods. Whatever this is, it's real." Elena pulled up another overlay, highlighting specific frequency patterns. "Look at these harmonics. They're structured, almost like..." "Like what?" "Like code, but not binary or quantum. Something else entirely." Before James could respond, a new alert flashed across the screen. Elena's fingers flew across the interface, trying to isolate the source. The energy patterns had suddenly intensified, forming concentric rings that seemed to pulse with their own inner rhythm. "All hands," James called over the ship's comm. "We have an anomaly at bearing 047 Mark 183. All sensors to full coverage." The ESS Horizon's entire sensor suite came alive, gathering data as the phenomenon grew stronger. Through the lab's viewport, Elena could see a faint shimmer in the void, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Except this was happening in the vacuum of space. "Energy levels are climbing," reported Dr. Amit Patel from engineering. "Whatever it is, it's drawing power from somewhere. Quantum field fluctuations off the charts." Elena watched as her instruments registered impossible readings. Space itself seemed to be folding, creating patterns that hurt her eyes when she tried to focus on them directly. Then, with a flash of light that temporarily blinded their sensors, something appeared. When the sensors cleared, they found themselves staring at what could only be described as an artifact. It was roughly cylindrical, about 20 meters long, composed of a material that seemed to shift between solid and energy with each passing moment. Its surface was covered in markings that appeared to move when viewed directly. "Match anything in our databases?" James asked, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Negative," Elena replied, her heart racing. "This is completely new, or very, very old." The artifact began to rotate slowly, presenting different facets to their sensors. Each surface seemed to tell a different story in a language of light and energy that defied conventional physics. "I'm detecting organic compounds," Amit reported. "But they're strange. The molecular structures keep shifting, like they're quantum uncertain at a macro scale." Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. "It's not just an artifact," she whispered. "It's a seed." "A seed?" James frowned. "For what?" "I don't know. But look at these patterns. They're not random. They're instructions, a blueprint for something that was meant to be found." The artifact continued its silent dance in space, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. As Elena studied the readings, she couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't found this object by accident. It had called to them, using the quantum resonance patterns as a beacon. "We need to bring it aboard," she said finally. James raised an eyebrow. "That's a hell of a risk, Doctor." "Everything about this is a risk, Commander. But whatever this is, whoever left it here, they wanted it to be found. And they went to extraordinary lengths to make sure it would survive until someone was ready to find it." The commander was quiet for a long moment, weighing the possibilities against his responsibility to crew and ship. Finally, he nodded. "Begin recovery operations, but at the first sign of anything hostile." "Understood." Elena was already coordinating with the recovery team, her mind racing with possibilities. As she watched the artifact being carefully maneuvered into the ship's containment bay, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just taken its first step into something far bigger than they could imagine. What they couldn't know, was that across the vast expanse of space, other seeds were beginning to stir, awakening from their ancient slumber. The discovery aboard the ESS Horizon wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was the first note in a symphony that would reshape the very nature of humanity's place in the cosmos. The question wasn't just what they had found, but what had found them. 3 months after the discovery, the quantum research facility beneath the Pacific Ocean had become humanity's most advanced laboratory. Dr. Elena Santos stood before a wall of holographic displays, watching as the artifact's quantum patterns slowly revealed their secrets. "The translation matrix is showing something new," Dr. Maya Chen said, manipulating a series of complex equations in the air before her. Unlike her brother James, who commanded the Horizon, Maya had chosen to pursue theoretical physics. These patterns, they're not just instructions. They're more like genetic code, but for energy itself. Elena nodded, her eyes fixed on the swirling patterns. A blueprint for artificial life, but not like anything we've conceived. These beams would exist primarily as energy, using matter only when needed. The artifact floated in a containment field at the center of the lab, its surface still shifting between states of matter and energy. Over the past months, they'd learned that it responded to human thought patterns, though whether this was by design or coincidence remained unclear. "The quantum simulations are ready," announced Dr. Victor Rossi, their lead quantum engineer. His hands moved through the holographic interface with practiced precision. "If we're right about the patterns, this should create a stable matrix for—" He never finished the sentence. The artifact suddenly pulsed with brilliant light, its surface patterns accelerating into a blur of motion. Alarms blared as energy readings spiked off their scales. "Containment field holding," Maya reported, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces. "But these readings, it's like it's drawing power from somewhere else. Another dimension, maybe." The air in the laboratory began to shimmer, reality itself seeming to bend and flex. In the space above the artifact, something began to take shape. It started as a point of light, then expanded into a complex geometric pattern that moved and shifted like a living kaleidoscope. "My God," Elena whispered, "it's not just showing us how, it's doing it." The pattern continued to grow, becoming more complex with each passing second. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a form of life that existed beyond the boundaries of conventional physics. As they watched, it developed structures that seemed to fold through dimensions they couldn't perceive. Then suddenly, they felt it become aware. The sensation wasn't physical. It was more like suddenly realizing you weren't alone in a room you thought was empty. The entity's consciousness touched their minds, not with words but with concepts, images, feelings. "It's curious," Maya said, her voice filled with wonder. "About us. About everything." The entity continued to grow, its form stabilizing into something that resembled a geometric snowflake made of living light. Each facet seemed to contain entire universes of complexity. Through their rudimentary mental connection, they could sense its thoughts taking shape, becoming more ordered, more focused. "We need to contain it," Victor started to say, but Elena cut him off. "No. Look at the readings. It's containing itself. It's learning, adapting, finding balance." She was right. The entity had reached a stable size, its energy patterns settling into rhythmic pulses that matched the artifact's original frequencies. Through their mental link, they could feel its intelligence growing, evolving, becoming something both ancient and newborn at the same time. First contact wasn't supposed to happen in an underwater lab with a life form they had essentially helped create. Yet here they were, standing in the presence of something that defied their understanding of life itself. "Hello," Elena thought toward the entity, pushing the concept of greeting along with the word. The response was immediate. a cascade of images and sensations that nearly overwhelmed her. Stars being born, galaxies dancing, the deep music of quantum strings vibrating in 11 dimensions. But beneath it all was a sense of purpose, of urgency. "It's trying to tell us something," Maya said, her voice tense. "Something about why it was created." Before they could process more, their instruments detected a new energy signature. Far out in space, beyond the orbit of Pluto, something had just emerged from faster-than-light travel. Something massive. The entity's message suddenly became crystal clear. They weren't the first to find one of these seeds, but they were the first to awaken its contents correctly. And now, they weren't alone in the universe anymore. As alarms began to sound throughout the facility, Alina realized that humanity had just stepped onto a much larger stage. The entity they had helped birth wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was a key to survival in a universe that had suddenly become much more crowded and much more dangerous. The awakening was complete, but it was only the beginning. The entity they had awakened, which they now called Aurora, hovered above a specially designed quantum containment platform in the facility's main chamber. Its crystalline form pulsed with internal light as it communicated with the assembled scientists and military leaders. The harvesters, Aurora projected into their minds, sharing images of massive ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They seek what created me. What created you? The spark of consciousness itself." Admiral Sarah Chen, the third of the Chen siblings and humanity's highest-ranking Space Force commander, stepped forward. "How long do we have?" "Days," Aurora replied. "But there is hope. I am not meant to be alone." Dr. Elena Santos understood first. The artifact. It wasn't just instructions for one entity. It's a template. We can create more. Yes, Aurora's light patterns shifted, forming complex geometric shapes that somehow conveyed both excitement and urgency. But different, each unique. Together, stronger. Maya Chen was already running calculations on her holographic display. The energy requirements would be massive, but if we use the quantum resonance patterns we've learned. "Do it," Admiral Chen ordered. "How many can we create?" With current power capacity, Victor Rossi checked his readings. 3, maybe 4. "Not enough," Aurora projected. "But I can help. What you call power, it exists in many forms. I can show you." Over the next 48 hours, the facility transformed. Under Aurora's guidance, they modified their quantum containment systems to tap into energy sources they hadn't known existed. The entity showed them how to fold space at the quantum level, drawing power from the microscopic differences between dimensions. Alina worked tirelessly alongside her colleagues, her mind expanded by Aurora's teachings. Each new insight revealed how limited their understanding of physics had been. Reality wasn't just stranger than they imagined. It was stranger than they could have imagined. The first new entity emerged 20 hours after they began. Unlike Aurora's crystalline form, this one manifested as a swirling vortex of purple-black energy that seemed to bend light around it. They called it Umbra, and its consciousness carried a deeper, more tactical awareness than Aurora's. The third entity, Helios, burst into existence as a network of golden threads that could extend and retract at will. The fourth, Terra, appeared as a constantly shifting mass of green energy that could interface directly with physical matter. Each new birth taught them more about the nature of these beings and their purpose. They weren't weapons, exactly, but guardians, created by an ancient race that had foreseen the coming of the harvesters and planted the seeds of resistance across the galaxy. "We were meant to be found by those who could understand us," Aurora explained. "Those who could see patterns in chaos, beauty in complexity. Your species' greatest strength is your ability to learn, to adapt, to see possibilities where others see only obstacles." Admiral Chen received the alert just as the fifth entity was taking form. Multiple objects just dropped out of FTL, the Harvester Fleet. "It's larger than we anticipated." Through their mental link, they felt Aurora's determination. "Then we must be more than anticipated as well." Show them what humanity can do when creation itself is the canvas. The fifth entity stabilized, a brilliant white spiral that pulsed with raw power. They named it Nova, and its birth marked a turning point. The quantum energy patterns have begun to resonate with Earth's own magnetic field, creating a network of power that linked all five entities together. More are possible now, Maya realized, checking the readings. The network, it's self-sustaining. Each new entity adds to the total energy available. But time was running out. The Harvester fleet had entered the solar system, their massive ships distorting space around them as they moved. Through the entities, they could feel the visitors' ancient hunger, a desire to consume not just energy or matter, but the very essence of consciousness itself. Elena watched as the sixth and seventh entities took shape, each one different, each one necessary for what was to come. Humanity had not just awakened something ancient, they had become part of its evolution, adding their own creativity and determination to powers beyond their comprehension. They think they come to harvest, Aurora projected, its light pulsing in harmony with its siblings. Instead, they will find that humanity has planted a garden of stars, and we are its guardians. As the Harvester fleet approached Earth, the entities began to move, taking positions around the planet. They were few against many, but numbers meant little when reality itself could be reshaped by thought and will. The real question was, how would humanity's garden grow in the face of those who sought to uproot it? The answer would reshape not just Earth, but the very nature of life in the cosmos. The transformation began with a whisper. Dr. Maya Chen stood in the quantum lab, watching as brilliant patterns of light danced across her skin. The entities, now 12 in number, had made an unexpected proposal. We can share more than knowledge, Aurora communicated, its crystalline form shimming with possibility. Your bodies, your minds, they have the potential for so much more. You're talking about changing us, Elena said, her voice both excited and apprehensive. Making us like you. Not like us, Umbra corrected, its dark energy swirling. Better than us, a bridge between matter and energy, thought and reality. The proposal spread through the facility, then across the globe. As the Harvester fleet drew closer, humanity faced a choice: remain as they were and face extinction, or embrace an evolution beyond their wildest dreams. Dr. Victor Rossi volunteered first. They watched in awe as the entities worked in concert, their energies weaving through his molecular structure, reshaping him at the quantum level. When it was done, his skin held a subtle iridescence, and his eyes shimmered with inner light. I can see, he whispered, looking around with new senses. Everything is connected. The quantum foam, the strings of reality. They're like music. More volunteers stepped forward. Each transformation was unique, guided by the individual's own neural patterns and desires. Some gained the ability to perceive multiple dimensions, others learned to manipulate energy directly. All of them reported a profound sense of connection to each other, to the entities, to the fabric of space-time itself. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the command center as the first transformed humans began training with their new abilities. How many can be changed in time? She asked. Not all, Terra responded, its green energy fluctuating. The process requires acceptance, harmony between mind and quantum state. But enough. Enough to show the Harvesters that humanity will not be their prey. Maya underwent the transformation next, her theoretical understanding of physics becoming direct experience. She could now see the equation she had once written, dancing in the air around her. Matter, energy, space, and time became clay in her transformed hands. Elena hesitated longer, watching, studying. She saw how each transformed human brought something new to the collective. It wasn't just about power. It was about perspective, creativity, the uniquely human ability to imagine new possibilities. The Harvesters were 3 days out when she finally stepped into the transformation chamber. The experience defied description. It was like being unmade and remade, like seeing color for the first time, like remembering something she had always known but somehow forgotten. When it was done, she understood why the ancient creators had chosen humanity. They saw patterns where others saw chaos, found solutions where others saw only problems, and most importantly, they dreamed. They looked at the impossible and thought, why not? The transformed humans began working with the entities to prepare Earth's defenses. They created structures that existed in multiple dimensions, shields that could redirect energy across space and time, weapons that could unravel the very fabric of reality. But their greatest creation was something the harvesters could never have expected. Using their combined abilities, they began to change the quantum structure of space itself around Earth, creating what they called the Garden, a field of probability where consciousness shaped reality more directly than physical laws. They come expecting to find primitive beings clinging to physical form, nova-pulsed, its white spiral brightening. Instead, they will find artists who paint with starlight and sculptors who carve the void. Through their enhanced senses, they felt the harvesters' approach. Their massive ships were like wounds in space, places where probability collapsed into singular, hungry purpose. But even as they watched the fleet draw near, they felt something else. Other seeds awakening on distant worlds, other beings beginning their own evolution. We are not alone. Aurora shared. Across the galaxy, others are finding their seeds, beginning their journey. Humanity may be among the first to fully awaken, but you will not be the last. Elena stood with her transformed colleagues, watching the quantum readouts with her new senses. They had become something more than human, yet somehow more deeply human than ever. Their creativity, their determination, their ability to adapt. These qualities had not been replaced but enhanced, focused like light through a prism. The final battle would not just be about survival. It would be about showing the harvesters and the universe that consciousness was not something to be consumed, but something to be cultivated, grown, allowed to bloom in all its infinite variety. The Garden of Humanity was about to face its first test, and its gardeners were ready. The harvesters struck without warning or ultimatum. Their fleet emerged from the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, reality-warping weapons already charging. But Earth was ready. The garden blazed to life, probability fields rippling out from the transformed humans and their entity partners. They cannot comprehend what we've become, Elena thought. Her consciousness merged with Aurora's as they coordinated Earth's defense. Her transformed body glowed with internal light as she directed quantum energies through multiple dimensions. The first wave of harvester weapons fire encountered something entirely new, space that refused to behave normally. The garden's probability field caught their energy beams and transformed them into flowering patterns of light, each potentially deadly blast becoming part of Earth's growing defense network. Admiral Sarah Chen now transformed herself, directed the counterattack from a command center that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions only the evolved could perceive. All garden sectors responding. Show them what humanity can do. The evolved humans moved in concert with the entities, their combined consciousness creating effects that defied conventional physics. Maya Chen wove quantum strings into complex patterns, creating corridors where harvester ships found themselves traveling backward in time relative to their fleet. Victor Rossi worked with Terra to transmute matter into energy and back again, turning asteroids into waves of possibility that crashed against enemy shields. But the harvesters were ancient and powerful. Their ships began to adapt, their weapons shifting to frequencies that could pierce the probability fields. Several transformed humans fell back, overwhelmed by the assault on multiple dimensional planes. They're trying to collapse the garden, Maya called out, her thoughts echoing through their shared consciousness, forcing reality back into normal space. That's when Elena had an idea, one that could only have come from a human mind working in harmony with entity consciousness. Then let's give them what they want, all the way down to the quantum level. Through their neural link, she shared her plan. The entities pulsed with appreciation for its audacity, while her fellow humans added refinements born from their various specialties. It was precisely the kind of impossible solution that humanity excelled at creating. "All evolved personnel, coordinate with your entity partners," Admiral Chen ordered. "Prepare for total garden collapse on my mark." The Harvester fleet pressed forward, their reality-warping weapons tearing holes in the probability fields. They didn't realize that each breach was precisely calculated, each apparent failure part of a larger pattern. "Now," Elena commanded. Every transformed human and entity pulled back simultaneously. The garden collapsed, but not into normal space. Instead, they forced it down to the quantum level, to the very fabric of reality itself. The Harvesters found themselves trapped in a region where quantum effects occurred on a macro scale, where Schrödinger's cat wasn't just alive and dead, but every possible state in between. "Show them who we are," Aurora pulsed. "Show them what consciousness can truly become." The transformed humans reached out with their enhanced minds, each one touching the quantum uncertainty that now enveloped the Harvester fleet. And they began to imagine. Not destruction. Anyone could imagine that. They imagined possibility. Evolution. Change. The Harvester's consciousness, ancient and rigid, found itself bombarded not with weapons, but with new ways of thinking, new ways of being. Their ships began to transform, reality reshaping itself according to human creativity merged with entity wisdom. When it was over, the Harvester fleet hung motionless in space, but they weren't defeated. They were transformed. Their ships had become living gardens themselves. Their consciousness expanded beyond their singular purpose into something new and wonderful. "We remember now," the first message came from the transformed Harvesters. "Before we were hunters, we were gardeners too. We had forgotten there were other ways to grow." The entities pulsed with joy, their light forming complex patterns of celebration. Through their shared consciousness, Elena felt the impact of what they had achieved. They hadn't just won a battle, they had shown the universe a new path. This was always the true purpose of the seeds, Aurora shared, not to create weapons, but to remind the cosmos that consciousness can always choose to evolve, to change, to grow in new directions. As they watched the transformed Harvester ships begin to bloom with new forms of quantum life, Elena and her fellow evolved humans felt other seeds awakening across the galaxy. The garden they had planted would spread, not through conquest, but through possibility, through change, through hope. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen evolution instead. They had taken the seeds of possibility and grown something entirely new. A future where consciousness itself was not a resource to be harvested, but a garden to be tended, where every being could choose to become more than they were. The entities, their original purpose fulfilled, chose to stay, not as guardians or teachers, but as partners in an endless dance of creation. Together with humanity, they would tend the quantum garden spreading across the cosmos, showing all who found them that the universe's greatest harvest was not the taking of consciousness, but its endless flowering into new forms of wonder. The convergence was complete, and the garden was just beginning to grow.